to share these thoughts with you. Let's say maybe these thoughts are just for entertainment purposes. So you really don't have to take anything I'm saying home. If you see the areas where they apply to your life, then you can just apply them to your life and all that. One of the biggest problems we've been trying to deal with is people's understanding of the concept of God. And then the ability to get to understand this concept, to get this concept outside of your religious lens. And the reason why it is important this subject is discussed outside of religious lens is because however big God is, he never called for a religion. He never instituted it, never established it. Jesus came to the earth and never planted a church. And never, so we're going to have to break this down to understand the concept of who God is. So it tells you vividly that this conversation is not a religious conversation. Because whoever he is bigger than your mode of worship. Is that simple enough? All right. So, and to understand or to be able to break down the concept of God, one of the subjects we cannot but deal with also is the subject of religion. Because religion is man-made. Attempt to understand, worship, and serve God, but it doesn't end there. With the hope of eternal reward. So every religion have people wrapped in because there is an understanding or a belief in eternity. Christianity or Christians believe that there's an afterlife. Muslims believe that there's an afterlife. Hindus believe that there's an afterlife. Buddhists believe that there's an afterlife. So it is almost the fact that the moment you believe that there is a God, you almost immediately believe that there's an afterlife. So religion is man-made method. So I think, for instance, there was a time we were having a conversation about a meeting we're having. And we were talking about the dress code for the meeting. And I think someone asked a question that, and I said, no, you must understand that the dress code for the meeting, there's nothing spiritual about it. It's just activity. It is part of the things that keeps people coming to church. And the reason why that truth is important is that, for instance, you're going for a meeting and they say it's all white. They say dress like this. It's not scripture. It's not going to make your heaven more glorious and all that. It is just good for the church as an organization because people who have not gotten a sense of meaning become bored without activity. The fact that you said yes shows you didn't understand. People who have not gotten a sense of meaning get bored with activities and without activities. So it is by yourself that if you go to a place and they are not doing all those things, you start wondering, this place is not making us. And anyways, it's because we're also social beings. So all those things, they keep us going, so, yeah. So if we're going to look at this subject, how we've been able to understand God, one of the things you've seen probably as a church person is the way God has been described. And one of the understanding of God that you immediately almost have in your mind is that God is perfect. That's the first understanding of God you have. And of course, if I say if someone tries to bring an argument that maybe this is not true, then the counter argument you have also is that he said, "Be ye perfect, even as your Father in heaven is perfect." And oftentimes, as we try to have theological argument, we throw away theological rules. That a matter is not theologically binding because it appears in one place of the scripture. In fact, it's not theologically binding because it appears in 2-3 places of the scripture. If the entire attempt of the Bible does not support that subject, then something is wrong with the subject. So, for instance, we read. So let's take Christians. What's the book Christians use? Bible. So let's take Muslims. Quran. All right. So let's start with the Christian material, the Bible. So let's look at. Is there any part of the Bible that supports that God is perfect? So we read Genesis 1. That's the introduction. Right? God as the creator. Then in that same Genesis 1 also we see that as big, perfect, huge, and amazing as this God is, that his work can be destroyed. He said it himself. Most of the things God did in Genesis were damaged. He made the heavens and the earth was damaged. He made man was hijacked. Man was not just hijacked, but it was hijacked from him for over 4,000 years. All your life that you've lived is just a few decades. So imagine God not being able to accomplish what he wants to accomplish for 4,000 years. That's how much of a struggle God was with. He got people out of Egypt in the Bible, and he wanted to kill all of them. As a matter of fact, he got to a point where he knew they all had to die. And while he was planning how to kill them, one of his servants came and said, "You know what? If you kill these guys, people are just going to believe that you don't know your work." And he said it's true. Another point, he even had to wipe out the whole earth with water. So it tells us that sometimes our construct of who God is wrong because we're always trying to do image laundry for him. You're trying to build a construct for God and make him live in that construct. And the danger of that is that once you build that construct for him and make him live in that construct, if your life is not in line with that construct, you feel you are failing. So for instance, if you believe you are a perfect child of a perfect God, once there's an imperfection in your life, believe that you are not serving the true God properly. Or those who are religious tend to tell you that if you know who God is, this aspect of your life should not be failing. But meanwhile, the one you want to be like have aspects that failed. He had inventions and things he tried to do that didn't work. The attempt, I'm trying to use the Bible now as a material to make man in his own image took 4,000 years to make. You've been in an organization for 3 months and you think you have failed. So as we read the Bible outside of religious lens, we saw a God who struggled with inventions, with man, his greatest invention. Struggled with our mindset, struggled with many things. But again, that in itself doesn't still mean it's not powerful, right? Because power. So one time I was speaking somewhere. I was trying to answer people's thoughts when they said that people always think about, and if you've talked about, let me just know if you've thought about this before, that if God is powerful and is who he is, when the devil rebelled, why didn't he just kill him? Does that not make sense? Why don't you just kill him? Yeah. The reason that thought crossed your mind is the proof that you deserve the kind of government you have. Because you believe that once there is absolute power, there should be absolute activities, absolute devastation, absolute destruction. Power should have no limit. But absolute power corrupts absolutely. So it means that God's concept of power is not once you go against me, I kill you. If he didn't kill the devil that rebelled, and that's the greatest rebellion, that is the cause of all the things that we have. How come he's killing people that the rebellion was not even up to the devil's rebellion. Do you understand what I'm saying? In the sense that if something goes wrong in your life, just believe that God is going to kill you. So his concept of power, his concept of leadership, his concept of all those things is not our man-made construct in terms of concept. Now, so we're trying to look at the Bible as a matter. If Christianity is true, then the Bible as a material is either taught wrongly or let's say we don't even understand it. Because let's first ask this question. Is Christianity a religion? Okay, someone say yes. It's a religion? All right. So Christianity means it is man-made attempt to understand, worship, and serve God with the hope of an eternal reward. Is that it? So if you believe that Christianity is a religion, then it tells you that Christianity is man-made. Is that your final answer? Any other person? That's your answer. Is that your final answer? Is Christianity a religion? No, you don't believe it's a religion. So what is it? A way of life. Yeah, that's a way to escape. What does that mean? Yes, the people who call them Christians, let's make this as an argument. It's just a wild argument. The people who call them Christians were not filled with the Holy Spirit. Neither were they Christians. So it was a name that unbelievers gave them. So it means that those who don't know the perfect God gave them a perfect name. Is that an argument? Is that your argument? So they call them Christians because they look like Christ. Yes. And who is Christ? God became flesh. Is that the design of God? That they should just look like him?
I believe it's the design of God because
So if you say Christianity is a way of life, what are you saying in simple terms? How do we describe that concept? What is Christianity?
It means that there's a way a Christian should look like.
I understand that.
The way they should live, the way they should do.
Are you saying Christianity is a culture?
I can say it's a culture.
So Christianity ought to be a cultural construct, not a religion.
Yes, it should be.
That's your final answer.
Yes.
All right. Any other person again who have an argument around this? Okay. Yeah. You want to try? Okay. Who's trying? Yeah. Okay. Yes. Start. Yeah.
Thank you, sir. My argument is that Christianity is a religion. It's man-made because just like the scripture he cited, it was man that gave them the name, and it was because they were acting and they looked in a certain way, and that became a construct.
Now, the idea is, if we conclude now that this is a religion and it is man-made, at the end of the day, it means this subject here, which is the hope of eternal reward, will be false. Because you cannot give a hope at the end of what you made, eternity that you didn't create. If I make a construct up, whatever reward I'm going to give you must be such that is within the framework of the construct. If I did not make Nigeria, I cannot promise you anything in Nigeria. So what I'm simply saying is that man cannot guarantee an heaven that he didn't make. So it means that the idea of Christianity being a religion, which leads me to a very important conversation we should have, Okay, where's that? New. Okay. Which leads me to so we look at this now. God, again, we're still looking at the subject of God. As we read the Bible, we see God the creator, right? Meaning that he's the inventor, designer, what else again? And so on and all that. Right? Then we also see God the planner. So he plans everything, thank you, and then execute. And as we read the Bible, I'm still going to come to whether the Bible is a religious book or not. One thing we just cannot deny from that is that whatever it is, it's a code of intelligence. Huh? So, in the sense that we don't just see God who made, we also saw process. And we saw laws. And one of the amazing laws, the first law that you're going to observe in the Bible, is the law of cause and effect. Have you heard about this law before? So the law of cause and effect simply means that to every action, there is a corresponding result. That's what it means. So let's take, for instance, if I touch your hand, you feel. The effect is the feeling. The cause is the touch. God said, let there be light. That's the cause. He spoke. And there was light. There's nothing spiritual about the law. Newton tried to get something quite close when he said that to every action, there's an equal but opposite reaction. You see that now. So, these are principles. He spoke. This happened. In fact, if you look at the things that were described in the Bible, there's no way they could have been without a cause. So, for instance, when he said to Adam, be fruitful and multiply, that's an effect. People don't just give birth to children by just sitting and looking at themselves. There's a cause. So it tells you that to everything he said, there's supposed to be actions. So cause will be what? Actions. And then effect will be what? Result. This is the way God designed for things to work. So it means that, how do you describe this situation where there is no action, but you expect results? That's what you call hope. So the moment you despise cause, and then you expect result, that's hope. And in fact, it's called false hope. And to expect result without understanding the right action is a way to, first and foremost, despise, to question, to ignore the method of God. For instance, there was nothing God made by just looking. Through creation, we see that silence doesn't produce. So everything that we see has a corresponding action. And some people who are scientists have been able to break this down further in many ways, more than we've been able to understand. But again, if we understand, if God is who we say he is, then science doesn't negate him or contradict him. In fact, I wrote something down that, let me read it out for you the way I wrote it. Maybe this is going to help somebody's mind. Are you ready? If what you have invented is a problem to the earth, or to people living on the face of the earth, or it threatens human existence, then the wisdom is not from God. Because as we study the subject of God as the creator, when he said everything he made is good, the implication of that word is there is no side effect in creation. Now let's pause and argue this scientifically. Because now people can talk about harmful exposure to the radiation from the sun. How about that? He made the sun. So why is it that people now, to have good skin, have to wear sunscreen? Because the sun can burn up their skin. So if you argue that, that can be an argument. Let's say that can be an argument. Now, if that's an argument, that shows that the person who is owning that argument doesn't know much. Because the effect of the reason why you're even talking about radiation from the sun is called what? Greenhouse effect. CFCs. Chlorofluorocarbons. And these are what? A man's activities. That is what? Depleting the sun. So this talk about man's activities that is destroying what God has made. The activity of man is the cause. The effect of this is the effect. Yeah, that's the effect. You look at everything. So it shows us that if only we follow God's pattern for creation, there ought not to be side effect in anything that we do. So it also, if we apply this generally, it means that your work should not affect your family. It means no aspect of your life should affect another one because it is working. It's a simple application. Is it simple enough? Okay. But this is not where I'm going. I'm trying to take you to where I'm going. So let's look at this now. In studying that, we see God's pattern. And I said to you that scientific laws are not man's inventions. Scientific laws are observations. Laws are from observation. If there are laws as touching the earth, then they're from observation about, let me use the word about, of creation. So for instance, let's look at Newton's law. The law of inertia. Fantastic law. All object remains in a uniform state of motion. Uniform state of motion. Uniform state of motion or rest. So it means an object can be going in this direction or even going in this direction. You understand? That's simple. I'm just showing you different directions. There's nothing deep about it. Unless compelled to change by an external force. So it means if I throw this object up, let's say this object is BO. If I throw it up, it ought to keep going up till it reaches the point of escape velocity. Unless compelled to drop by an external force. So it means nothing ought to stop it from going up. So what's the external force that brings this down? Gravity. Man didn't invent gravity, just observe that there's a pull. Same as this direction, same as this direction. So every object remains in a uniform state of motion. So the law of inertia doesn't just describe object at rest. It describes motion also. So it's not just about rest. Do you understand what I'm saying? There's a part of that is rest. That if this object is left here, to remain here for 1,000 years, unless compelled to change by an external force acting on it. Is that simple enough? Okay, so let's have a different graph for that now, so we can have better understanding. So let's say this is an object. This is an object. So this is the object. It remains in a uniform state of motion, whichever direction, or a state of rest, unless compelled to change by an external force. Is this simple enough? Good. So it means, let's say this object was going, this subject was going in this direction. Then a force tilted a bit up. Then it deviated. At this initial level, you know, just simple maths. What do we have here? What angle is this? So let's say there's a slight deviation. And let's say this is 15. Now, it's changed now because there's a force. And then, now there's a new paradigm. And as it keeps going, you discover that it gets to a point that this object that has been tilted from this angle becomes totally apart from this. But meanwhile, from the initial state, it was just a little tilt. Is this simple to understand? So what I'm saying is, let's say this is the road to... Have you passed roads before? That there's just a little bend. And cars just move this direction, and you just move it. But it's just a little bend. I mean, from the point of entry, you can actually cross to both sides. But as you journey further, this will lead to Lagos, and this will lead to Ibadan. From the point of starting, the journey takes to move back from point A to point B might just be a few steps. But the longer it goes, they may never meet again. So let's say Christianity is the object. And God's design is the truth. And over the years, there's been a bit of tilting from one generation to another. So what happens is that if, argument A, God's design from Genesis is kingdom, it will tilt to have to become a religion. So you move from the concept of God's design, and because you've lost him, you now enter man-made attempts to try to find him. So let's take for instance, what's the idea of God we saw in Genesis? The God who is creative, the God who understands conflict management, the God who can have problem. That tells you that the idea of God in itself God did not create a system that he himself is absorbed from consequences of actions. For instance, if God made the devil, and Christians can argue that God didn't make the devil. Let's talk about the devil as a construct of an evil genius. Let's talk about the devil as a person, Lucifer. There was a consequence of Lucifer. One of the words used to describe in the Bible is that he's an anointed cherub that covered, meaning that he was a being of God's presence. There's a consequence of one who is in his presence falling. And that's what the world is suffering today, including the project of God and his systems and everything he's trying to build. So if we are suffering it, means God too is suffering it. God doesn't function like, because I'm God, if anything happens, there will be no consequence. He himself lives in the realm of consequence. And when the devil fell because of this closeness to him, it's a law that a fall is strong or severe to the degree of the proximity of the one who fell to power. We're starting from somewhere, but is that simple enough? So we see, if we look at, so in the Bible, we're not introduced to God as the peak of a religious practice. We're introduced to God, who is, all the concept of God in the Bible is a king with his children in an attempt to build a kingdom. And that's why you see when Jesus came and he was teaching how to pray, the prayer was simple. Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Your kingdom come, your will be done in heaven, be done on earth. So if we look at Christianity as a kingdom construct, it is heaven to earth. Religion, we are going to heaven. So the danger of this, we are going to heaven, is that if this is a construct that you want to live in, and that's all you have been taught, and that's everything your life is about, what happens is that you are going to create a vacuum in the earth. So the light of the world is absent, because that light just want to go to heaven. We should learn. So, are we going to heaven? Yes. There's no argument there. I mean, you understand what I'm saying? Your assumption about a law cannot create or recreate the law. For instance, if you jump out of a plane with the assumption that there's no gravity, your assumption does not force gravity to cease to operate. Laws exist regardless of what you think. So it means that if you face a law with a consequence, you become a victim of the law. So if you face a law without understanding the law, with the assumption of what the law is, lawyers have it like this, that ignorance of the law is not an excuse. So the fact that you feel if you kill, you will not go to jail, is not the reason why the judge will say, oh, sorry, we didn't know, you didn't know. As long as you contradict a law, the consequence is the resultant effect of contradicting the law. So if we say that Christians suffer, Christians struggle, Christians this, why is there a problem on the earth? Why is there sickness? Why is there that? It also means one thing. Laws have been broken. Now, let's take it a bit. Let's look at simple examples. Genesis 3. God told man, don't eat of the tree in the garden. Then that's in Genesis 2. Then in Genesis 3, the wife said, God said, don't touch. At the point of God communicating it, a body of truth. At the point of you miscommunicating it, there's been a slight tilt that can be repaired by giving the right information. But as left unrepaired, it caused sin, then consequences, then being driven out of the garden, Cain and Abel, first death, the flood, wars, and problems. So it gets to a point that you cannot even trace the magnitude of the content of and all that to the fact that all this began with a slight deviation. And they're just basic principles in life too. Let's say, for instance, let's look at, so maybe some of the things that God even says in the Bible. So let me give you an instance. Imagine I get 10 mad people and got them to bath. We're able to take care of them. Had very good facials for them, male and female. You understand? did fantastic. Give some of them suit, some of them gown. Then bring them into a party. And then you now say, I like that one. And then someone asks, why? Say, can't you see? She's so beautiful. That's a decision. From the point of entry of that decision, it's just a simple conversation. But the effect of marrying a mad person can tell even to the fourth generation, because you're going to now bet dysfunction. So maybe we can also have an argument. The reason why we consult God before making decisions is so that we don't make decisions that tilt at the point of decision just a slight angle away from the design, but that the consequence over time bet what you can't even handle. Maybe the idea is not God binding people with a law. Maybe it is God keeping people in safety. Let me break this down like this. How do you think God will want to keep you in truth? How does he keep people in truth? To do what is right. Culture. God's tool is culture. What that means is that, no, we use this word oftentimes wrongly. Some people say, I want to influence culture. I want to do all that. You ever hear this kind of word? Yeah, I want to shift culture. I want to shift the balance and all that. But so most time we use that word because our concept of culture is a way of life. The way people do their things. But that's not God's concept of culture. God's concept of culture is an environment. Culture is environment. So let me give you an instance. If you've done anything around microbiology before, you talk about culture media. You know that's where your word of media comes from. Or you don't even know. Or you can call it culture medium. So if you want to culture, let's say you want to culture a microbe like Escherichia coli, Shigella, and all that. If you have a bad water, a dirty water, and you want to isolate, let's say, E. coli from the water. How do you isolate E. coli from the water? You will introduce a media, a material that E. coli feeds on to help each E. coli stand out. And then now you have E. coli. It will form, it will begin to spread, begin to create certain changes in the media. So, what you have just done is that thing that you put inside to identify this particular microbe you are culturing it. You just create an environment for that microbe to thrive. God doesn't try to bind you with law. He creates an environment for you to thrive. That environment is called righteousness. That's the idea. That's the difference between the law of Moses and Christ. And then that tells us quickly that if you say you want to influence culture, you don't influence culture by fighting people. You influence culture by creating an environment for what you want to see to come out. If you create an environment for intelligent conversation, intelligent will come out. If you create an environment for argument, theological doctrine, because that's what people do in religion, those kind of people will come out. So if we understand the Bible, because this is one of the things that is getting many people to be upset. People are not upset with God. They are upset with people's expression of God. They are upset with our construct. Don't forget what I said, that your assumption about a subject, about a law, about a construct, cannot create or recreate the construct. So your assumption about God cannot create or recreate him, or the idea of him. So what that means is that if you break a law, and then what's the way to get it right when you break a law? You appeal and get the law right. Let's look at discourse. Have you heard about the word ripple effect before? It's also a subject of wavelength. Under wavelength, have you studied waves? So let's say this is a piece of stone. You drop the stone in a pond, and then it creates a disturbance, an energy environment that travels and transfer energy from one point to another. B, C, D. That's a ripple. But this is the locus. So you threw this here, then it starts traveling and transferring. So let's say, for instance, this is ignorance. In a person's life. What are the effects of ignorance? Huh? Lack. Lack is a fundamental truth, and it's so important because wealth is not a product of favor from God. Wealth is a product of wisdom of God. What that means is that wealth is a product of knowledge. Because you believe as Christians that you're the one who has found favor from God and you are still the one who is broke. So it means that if somebody who doesn't know that God have knowledge, so we're going to be put in the opposite, what's he going to have? He's going to have abundance. Once there is lack here, what's the resultant effect of the person who is ignorant? Prayer. Once there is abundance, what's the resultant effect of this one? Systems. And look at this. So he's going to start praying and say Lord and all that. And then the prayer is going to build a system, a religious system, that benefits from the fact that he's here because he doesn't have and because he doesn't know. And the little money he doesn't have, they take it from him. And then you're going to have dysfunctions. The second one will be dysfunctions. I hope you know that lack actually leads to loads of dysfunctions in the society. I want to break something down. So recently, I was thinking about how intelligent the Bible is. Some simple words from the Bible contain an entire continent. For instance, the Bible says that a borrower is a slave to lender. Imagine if African countries have no debt. Then there's no control by the IMF. There's no control by World Bank. And then they are free to make their decisions. So if you want to understand the classical example of how debts can make people slaves, and presidents cannot make decisions until they are controlled by Western power, check the power of debt in African countries. The overall debt in the entire world right now is about $340-something trillion. First question you want to ask is, why is the debt of the world calculated in dollars? And I think it's please let me check it. Just let me fact check, please. I think $245 trillion. And out of that, America alone is owing about $74 trillion. And then China next is owing about $26 trillion. But they will tell you that the difference between America's debt and every other person's debt is all America needs to do to clear debt is to print more money. Because the debt is being owed in their currency. And then you're obligated to trade in that currency. You work for the currency, they print it. So you look at this now. No knowledge. It's the cause. And then you start having the effect of that. Bad decisions. Lack. 345. All right. Between 345 and $353 trillion. So you have lack. Hope you know the part of the effect of lack is debt. There's a story. Because again, to this person who doesn't understand the systems that God has built, whenever anything is going wrong, his own conclusion is that God wants it so. Somebody has died at the age of 30. Oh, God gives and God takes. Somebody is trying to give birth. And because they couldn't afford a good hospital, they've lost the child. And say, oh, God, we give you back the babies. God didn't take the baby. Lack did. The fact that there's lack and many sicknesses can be diagnosed in proper hospitals at the time they should be diagnosed in better hospitals has led to early death. Then there's going to be vacuums. In society, in families, in homes. Things that can be avoided. And if you build a religious system around the fact that there is lack, you're going to keep having testimonies like I fell from bike, I didn't die. Somebody carried me on bike and didn't ask for money. I entered one chance. And one chance is vehicle of those kidnapping. And I came out safely. So we see the concept of miracle as a God who intervenes only when a failed system that didn't work has been triggered against us. So, for instance, there is nothing God made on earth. Meanwhile, every other thing he made is striving except man. Because all those things are striving through principles. The only person who left the principle and wait for miracle is man. And miracle is only needed when laws are broken. You need healing because you are sick. You are raised from the dead because you die. Your eyes are open because you were blind. You are healed from it because you had a headache. So we pay little or no attention to things going right. Your testimony is never about the fact that you are not sick. You need to be sick to appreciate healing. You need to be carried by those who want to kidnap you to appreciate going smoothly. You need to have an accident to appreciate safety. So both of the things we call testimonies are constructs. So, because not only do we live in a fallen world, we also have a fallen mentality. So there is no appreciation until there is contradiction. Because now this is when you the moment this is what powers a life, ignorance. You must understand that as long as the cause remains a constant, the disturbance remains constant. So what that means is that if I take a stone, I take 10 stones of equal mass and drop them in the same volume of water at the same height, the ripple effect that it will cause will be the same. So 1 effect, 2 effect. It's the reason why your 2 birthdays look alike in terms of your results. Because if the same knowledge is what is going into your life, the ripple effect, the result is the same thing. Sometimes you're praying that God change my experience in next birthday, but God is saying change what you're learning. Do you understand what I'm saying? So by what metrics do you believe that next year is going to be better than this year? Prayer. By what metrics should you start with? Knowledge. Meaning that as long as what you know is the same, the resultant effect will be the same. Prayer for us, and the reason why it's not what God agrees with, is because it's an attempt to bully God to break his principles. I don't want to know more, just give me abundance. Do you understand? Now, this is for a balance. There's also a law. And this law powers many things. I'm just going to show you. It's also Newton's law. To every action, there is what? Is an equal. But what? Reaction. That simply suggests that if a cause is powered to move in direction of A, you have to prepare for a reaction that is coming. It's the reason why you say every object may itself be inertial unless compelled to change by an external force. That's just telling you that there's a presence of external force. It's the law that governs football. It's the reason why to be a professional, because you have learned to play against. It governs sports. If it doesn't govern your life, there's a chance you die early because you prepare for life as a wise person. Forget that they are foolish people. So don't just survive to win. You don't just exist to win. There are people you must survive. They are the equal but opposite reactions. That's why if you are a wise person in an environment, you just don't speak because the foolish people are a reaction. Never underestimate the power of a mob that has no knowledge. On the account of this, we pray. On that account. But the concept of prayer is not trying to replace a system you break with God stepping in. So, let's say for instance, if you drop a stone at this locus point, that it will create a ripple effect can't be stopped with prayer. It's a consequence of dropping the stone. So, the moment you don't know, the first phase you may be lack. But that's just the beginning. Lack will produce something else, then to produce something else, then to produce something else, then to produce something else. So before it starts spreading, deal with it. So that your entire concept of God's intervention will not be an intervention to deal with what he has created knowledge for you to deal with. For instance, look at God's method of creation. It is observed let's say this is a law. Everything God made is interdependent. What does that mean? It's the reason why you have your... Let's list the things he made. Plants. Mm-hmm. 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 These are animals. Mm-hmm. So here you can have your eagle, blah, 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 and all that. Then you have, no, what do you call this? No. What do you call these animals that feed on what is dead? Not vultures. No. Check it out quickly. No. They feed on what is dead. So you have animals, you have this. So here we have your goats. So let's look at the basic. No. I'm going to get it out. There's a word I'm trying to use. So you see, let's look at this basically. Look up. You plant your vegetables. Huh? The rats or rodents eat it. Uh-huh. Let's say foxes eat the rodents. Then you also have eagles here too. etc. Then you have your lions. Here you have also man. Here too you also have man. Then you have down and all that. At the end of the day, what is going to eat this guy when it decays? Small animals that feeds maggots that feeds on the decomposing body of this. So you have maggots. Now you have your lizard. We also eat the maggot. Then bring it back to this again. It keeps going as a cycle. Everything keeps eating everything and back as a balanced cycle. It's a balanced safari. You call it energy pyramid. God doesn't supervise this system because he doesn't have to. It's a balanced, self-sustaining system. If what you are doing needs you to work, you will fail. The idea of system is for your absence. You only supervise what is not working. If we study this very well, how do I apply this as a kingdom person in my day-to-day work? Because those you call unbelievers, understand, Christians do one thing or two things. That is not self-reliant. They either do one thing or one or two things. Two things that don't interdepend. Then they complain. And then they say, well, I'm too stressed. I'm just so tired. So I use the concept. Let's say, for instance, a football club. If this is a Christian, they make money from views. That's all. But it's not just views or those coming to watch the ball. They also have TV stations. With this, you can make every day what you make in one football match. Then they sell jerseys, brand endorsement, food, souvenirs. The list goes on. The only thing here, football. And look at the effect. Look at the effect. Look at the effect. What are the effects around your talent? What are the supporting structures around it? What does it feed and what feeds it? I wanted to throw something in. The danger of practicing Christianity as a religion is the false hope it is built on. And that false hope and what it has made out of people is the reason why anybody whose heart yearns for the kingdom can truly hate Christianity as a religion. Most people who hate Christianity as a religion are not atheists, they are not unbelievers. They understand the concept of kingdom and how what is right should look like. And they can see that what you're doing is not right. And the reason why you are angry with them and you are not seeing that what you're doing is not right is because religion colonized you not to see it. So, for instance, let's bring out some things here. Let's look at, how do I go back? Okay, good. All right. I want to show you something now. Look at this. I want us to look at this place now. The construct, the whole idea of everything you're doing, the whole idea, I don't care what anybody's theology is, the whole idea of everything the Bible is about is for the earth to look like what heaven looks like. That's the whole idea. The whole idea is not escape. It is to fill this earth with the knowledge of the glory of the Lord as the water covers the sea. Meanwhile, when you say fill the earth with the knowledge of the glory of the Lord, the word there is kabod. And if I say to you that you have my nature, the word there is also kabod. Glory is not cloud, it's nature. It's the same word. Check it out. So when I say the whole earth should be filled with the knowledge of the glory of the Lord, it means the whole earth should be filled with the nature of God. What's the nature of God? Principles, methods, creativity. The glory is not the smoke. And the reason why many of you don't know something is wrong with your life is because religion told you to be good at the end. Just die. Then you are going to be amazed. You wake up on the street of gold. Then you wake up every day singing, this world is not my home, I'm just passing by. I get it. But if that's your construct, you have no reason to complain about bad government. Because it is the effect of your absence. Meanwhile, your presence doesn't even change. Your presence can be a problem. So don't just think systems are what they are because you are absent. There is no guarantee that you are better than those in the system, but for what you know and the nature that you have. So don't overhype yourself. That the nation is like this because there are no Christians in power. Go check again. There are Christians there. But they were raised in religious places. And they don't understand that the idea of presence in a place is like light in darkness, salt in a soup. Salt in a soup does not remove the pepper. You sweeten it in spite of that. So the one who doesn't know much, you stop complaining that it is because we are not there. Where are you? So look at this. I began to find some contradictions in the Bible, and I feel Christians you need to pay attention to. And I took my time to explain this. You can check. You look at the concept, like what was described in Genesis 1 verse 26. God said, let us make man our own image and after our likeness. Is that in your Bible? Very interesting text of the Bible. And yeah, and the next statement is a very serious one because these are issues. So God created man in his own image, and the image of God created him, male and female created them. And God blessed them and said unto them, be fruitful and multiply. You see, people move with that idea, be fruitful and multiply. And the only womb they get to complain about is the womb of children. But the word be fruitful and multiply there doesn't mean have children. Because later I talk about children, now say replenish the earth, that's children. Be fruitful and multiply means produce. Be productive. That's the word. Produce. I'm not telling you that maybe these things were deliberately edited and all that, but I must let you understand that the government of the earth is going to prefer a religion that doesn't threaten their presence. And if that means that they have to create versions of themselves in order to allow, it's going to be done. The only time people come out in church is because they don't have babies, not because they are not productive mentally. Your barrenness began before you got married. It began from the day you had brain you're not thinking with. That's when it starts coming out for fruit of. So it's not just fruit of the womb for women. A man too can lack fruit. Because if you look at the word there, and they said, be fruitful, multiply, replenish the earth, and have dominion over. The word dominion there is not the root word. The word there is prevail. It means to do all these things in spite. So the whole idea of worship, regardless of what's going on, life may beat you down. Just stay and endure. There is the subject of endurance. It is not what you apply because you don't know the law. When you break a law and something is triggered against you and they tell you to endure it to change, you will die in it. Some of you have your parent that died in it. I'm sorry if you lost any parents. I said that figuratively. You understand what I'm saying? I'm just saying that if you die today, you actually had hope of tomorrow. But there's nobody who died who wanted to. People die regardless of what they feel, what they think, what they plan for. And when it's time to exit, they just exit and they have to go regardless of all that. So what's the purpose of the earth if everything you live your life doing is just some false hope and some belief that one day it's going to get better? Because only religion offers one day thing. What the kingdom offers is that there are causes and there are effects. There are things God has designed. If you know and do, you get the result almost immediately. When you are a foolish person who has embraced the false hope of religion, you are going to think that you have patience as fruit of the Spirit. No, you actually have the deception from the wrong teacher. So let's look at, for instance, this is a body of truth. Prevail, have dominion on the face of the earth. Prevail over this. You can't prevail in the sense you don't get involved in. So let's say this is the idea. Christianity is already tied to governance because it's kingdom. Then you relegate it to church and just church alone. What do you get? You have a vacuum. Bad government. Let's not start from bad government. Bad people. Wrong ideology. Then it gets to the government. It gets to greed. Injustice. All these are just consequence of believing that all our purpose is church. Then we come back to cry to God to do what we left or what we failed to do that He has asked us to do. So you have Christians who think like this, keep looking up to heaven. Keep looking up. While the earth is being destroyed. And the whole concept of rapture is that one day we're going to escape. It's construct. His mindset. So just this belief. Right now. Let's just sing by and by. And at the end of the day, eternity is our home. Because the problem you are in is a product of the belief of your parent and their parents that the earth doesn't matter. Now they are gone. You're smelling it now. Are you feeling it now? And you don't even understand that you're contradicting things. Bad government. Product of. So some people say, don't get involved in anything family. Just Christ and Him crucified. Who is Christ? Christ engaged systems. As a matter of fact, Christ avoided religious people. He spent more time. So sometimes you read that he went to the synagogue and he was talking with them. Synagogue is not church, you know. Synagogue is not church, it's where people gather. It's like saying he went to the market square. Like you say he went to social media. The people who gave Jesus problem were religious people. The greatest threat to God's original design is not sinners. It's a religious church. If Jesus did not come to the earth to die, sacrifice of Jesus would have been, the ministry of Jesus would have been a failed experiment. The only reason it worked is because that's what he came for. You don't understand. I'm saying even when God became flesh, religion could have killed him. And he did. And the only reason it worked is because that's what he came to do. Who killed the prophet? Not unbelievers. Religious people. When Jezebel was going to even write a letter that this guy, what's his name now? The guy, Naboth, should be killed. Who did she write the letters to? The elders, the religious people. Who paid money never to let them know that Jesus came, that he rose from the grave? Religious people, the chief priests. And the Bible said even till today it is believed. You see that now? Who was the person that was able to afford to pay and use his influence to secure the body of Jesus, to be buried? It was a private disciple, one that was active in a secular space. What those who were regulated to just religious practice could do was cry. How do you look at your hypocrisy? How do you hate the idea of productivity but trust God for an helper who is productive? If every helper thinks like you, will you be blessed? If the goal of every helper is just to try and just make heaven and not do anything productive, don't be involved, don't just, if the way you chose to think that has produced the result that you have is the way the people who are helping you have chosen to think, will there be a miracle? Will there be a change in their life? No. It's the reason why people can know God's principle and have the result of you know his miracles. His miracle is triggered because an aspect of your life went bad. So you look at it. The idea from the very beginning is a people that will get involved. Be part of systems. Because the whole subject is kingdom. You hear people say with pride. So much arrogance around those statements. Preach Christ. We preach Christ only and him crucified. Well, who is Christ? Because Christ preached just one message. Kingdom. We don't get involved in families. Then there are problems. We don't get involved in entertainment. We don't get involved in all that. Then what happens is that you have, look at this, you have an earth now. And how many people do we have right now on the face of the earth? Quickly, check it out for me. We have about 2.4 billion professing Christians. Another fraction of this who are churchgoers. Then another fraction who are active Christians. Then very small who understands. Sometimes just 1%. Majority of these other guys, religious. And the danger of that is that a religious mind's focus is just one thing: hope in the afterlife. Which, in itself, it's not bad. There should be hope in the afterlife. Except that is missing in the system here. That's the problem. So, a religious mind sees God as one who compensates you with heaven for troubles. But you've got to go through the trouble first. A kingdom person understands how to bring the influence of that heaven here. So for a religious mind, the poorer, the more defeated you are, the more kingdom you are. For a kingdom person, fill this earth with the nature of God. Solve the problems. And it's all of them that will be solved in church, some of them will be solved in science, solved in the parliament, solved in government. What Esther did when they were about to be killed was practical. Do you understand that? What was practical that she did? She used her influence and her connection to knock the door. What Joseph of Arimathea did when Jesus was hanging on the cross was practical. He used his influence. What Daniel did when they were in Babylon was practical. He used his influence. What Joseph did with Pharaoh was practical. He used his wisdom. How come you don't want to do the practical? But you want the result of Daniel, Joseph, and Esther? First, you deal with proximity. You've got to be positioned in a place where you are close to solving the problem. It's not for those who are shy. It's not for those who are minding their business. And when you get involved, you're going to have to face trouble. Solitude is peaceful. There's the trouble that comes with involvement. It's what kingdom minds ought to be prepared for. So again, some of the biggest problems we are having is that, my words might be quite heavy, hope you don't mind. How do they prepare their heirs? By teaching them and training them to understand the custom of kingdom in terms of practice, in terms of lifestyle, in terms of etiquette, in terms of all that. But that's not where it ends. They also teach them the responsibilities of kingdom. They teach them why we do what we do. There are lectures that they have that a commoner will never have that lecture. A commoner goes about believing that life is good, people are going to love you, everything will be fine, just do right, and everybody will be all right. Don't look for anybody's trouble, nobody will look for your trouble. But in kingdom, they teach them how to confront when necessary, the right systems to use in confronting, how to have deals, treaties, agreements, and all that, how to make tough decisions, the kind that a commoner may never understand, how to build alliances, the kind that a commoner believes God will give him the result of the alliances. So at the end of the day, if we are groomed and raised in both a defeated family and not complimented for because we also attended a defeated church, it's double jeopardy, because the only thing you learn is the way of the commoner. God is a king, but you look like a servant, not like his child. The only thing that makes you believe you are his child is that you don't wear earrings, you tie scarf, you wear oversized clothes, oversized trousers, and believe that as you afflict yourself to look contrary to the image he's made, then that's the more God approves of you. Because you are just no different from the one who believes he's going to get 70 virgins in heaven. Tell me why it makes sense that the more your churches get filled is the more the nation declines. And the few amongst you who try to get involved to repair the nation, you don't get pushed back from the unbelievers. You get pushed back from the church. It's crab system. You almost die in the same thing. Go check everyone that Jesus told woe to. They were religious people. The scribes, the Pharisees. Who are those who try to bait him through his sermons? Religious people. When he healed a man whose hands have been withered, who are those who said today is Sunday, is Sabbath? Religious people. Religion is not a replacement for kingdom. It's the opposite of kingdom. It's the biggest threat to God's activity on earth. Oftentimes, if you get into the same room with 10,000 unbelievers and you put wisdom on the table and converse, you come to a good resolution. If you go to the same room with 5 Christians or 50, you come back with division, strife, anger, envy, and bitterness. And sometimes the reason why people are so loud, and when they feel they get an aspect of doctrine right, and they puncture something in your message, the reason why they will now soak it in, insult, drag, and use that to want to cause mayhem everywhere is because when every aspect of your life is failing, the only part you feel you are better than the person, you want to drag it up. It's the reason. It's the same law that governs the reason why a taxi driver will never allow you with your better car overtake him. If I can't win you in life, I'll win you on the road. I must win somewhere. When you don't understand kingdom in a way for every aspect of your life to work, you are going to get into a road rage on the journey of life. And just going to be relevant for banter as an argument. An argument that doesn't change people, doesn't change the system, doesn't change the government. So what the thing you want to ask yourself is that whether you're a religious person or a kingdom person, what are you currently practically doing that will give us a different country that we have in the next 10 years? You may find out that your concept of change in the years to come might just be hope. The fact that God would have done something. Religion builds systems on 2 things. Hope. Fear. There's a concept you can bring from hope. It's called fatalism. It's also where you get the word what will be. It's a concept that tells you that at the end of the day, regardless of what you do, this is how it will end up. It promises you a predetermined outcome regardless of actions. You are disregarding cause and effect. It's the reason why you say, I just know everything will be all right. While it sounds like faith, there must be something resting on. Then religion is built on fear. All the rules and regulations you obey is not because a culture has been built for righteousness to rise. It's because there's a God who will kill you if you don't. You give offering out of fear, because if you don't, you'll be poor. You give tithes out of fear, because if you don't, the virus will eat what you're doing. If God builds his system on fear, he should have killed the devil when he rebelled. The fact that God did not kill the devil is a sign that he will never build a system of fear. And by the way, if God had killed the devil, the very thing that justified the killing of the devil is the same thing that justified the killing of you. Because at one point we have all sinned. So it means that the idea of serving God will be a product of what? Fear. And you can't build a system of fear and expect it to thrive. Religion is taking you to heaven, God is making heaven down here. That's the idea. So, God didn't expect people to believe in the idea of heaven at last if we have not worked hard enough to show them what heaven looks like here. How do you want me to believe in something that everything you do in the name of the one who owns that thing is the direct opposite of it? Make it make sense. The reason why many of you are Christians is because we're born in Christian homes. Make it make sense. Every system you build looks like hell. You walk in a bank, when people greet you, it is hell. You give them a bit of your frustration. Every system around you doesn't mirror what it will even look like. The biggest advertisement of what heaven looks like is supposed to be the believer and the structures they build. But the believer that should mirror it himself, if he goes to hell with the condition he's living in, it's double problem because it's hell already. You preach to me about heaven, but you need transport fare to go back home. And you're telling me that when I come to Jesus, my life will be better. Then there's another argument around that Jesus is actually making your life on earth better. Wrong argument. Why is it that when Jesus came to earth, he never saw political problem? Because he came to die. So that you can have the righteous nature that will influence the earth. That's why he never saw political problem. He solved it in his resurrection. That when you have that nature, then influence your system with it. You cannot get involved without he has died. Kingdom is concerned with justice. The scripture I want to show you. Amos. Amos 5. From verse 20. We read Message translation. I can't stand your religious meetings. I'm fed up with your conferences and conventions. I want nothing to do with your religion project, your pretentious slogans. I'm sick of your fun schemes, your public relation and image making. I can take of your noisy ego music. When was the last time you sang to me? I want justice. Meaning that as people are being kidnapped, killed around the world, you cannot say that God loves it. He said he wants justice. You cannot say a nation is God's sacred on earth, and that nation is getting involved in ethnic cleansing, genocide. Other people, I say because they are God's favorite. The Bible says that they call themselves Jews, but they're of Satan. God has no favorite. Any reason why Israel seems to stand out in the Bible, the idea was fulfilled the day Jesus was born. That's the whole idea. From the moment Jesus has been born, died, and resurrected, Israel fulfilled their destiny. Just understand. Go check my teaching, the concept of Isaac and Esau. The idea of and Ishmael. The idea of the devil is that whatever you bring something right from, get something wrong from the same thing. Let the same womb bear Cain and Abel, the same womb Isaac and Ishmael. If the same nation produce Christ, maybe the same produce the Antichrist. Talking about pattern recognition, not doctrine. So you look at it. So yeah, Christians, we have selective righteousness. It's good and bad based on who has done it. Go check church history. For all the years Christianity was practiced as religion, of people died for some simple truth. The whole idea of the Bible being available to every common burnt at the stake for it. Burnt at the stake for it. Burnt at the stake for it. So if you don't understand kingdom, is when people can come to a place and the Bible as a weapon to colonize and emphasize on slaves obey your masters and fail to emphasize on have dominion and prevail. So you can loud certain areas. In order to have people in church, you can emphasize in what keeps them coming in defeat. What to make them think out of the box. Don't tell them about it. Pastor gets his ego from church being filled. That's where he gets that ego from. So our numbers is if truly we are light. But if we are if we are in darkness as those who are outside, of what use our numbers? If we are as confused as them, of what use our numbers? We talk about crowd engineering, how that the society is being engineered. But what you fail to understand is that an society will engineer the church in return. If foolish people are successfully engineered because of the loudness of and what they are saying all at once together, they will intimidate people. They will force them into a mode. They will put them in what they must say. That many nations are going through. That if people rise and think in certain areas, rise and say this is how you must think, because you allow them thrive. They were being engineered. Now even your wise people who want peace will have a pattern. And here we have a pattern. 100 people type, this is bad. Pastor, he spoke up. Then kill again. This is bad. Good man, he spoke up. Then kill again. This is bad. You're a good man. He spoke up. Then this is bad. Again, kill again. You're a good man. He spoke up. Then they understand. As long as I just even if I tell my PA to do it, I'm a good person. Them can continue. Everybody keeps doing it. We get up and change the system. Talking is not enough. Yes, sir. Why is it to speak the truth to power? Very, very simple. It's dangerous not because of the people that will even fight for it. It's because you speak the truth in a religious circle to power. The people in your religious circle know it's the truth. When they come for you, they step back. Because they too need your space to be empty because they believe God them to bless you. And once that space is empty and they come for you, then we go back to the norm. Then the also generally don't like men of God. So on their behalf, they're happy. But they're also part of the problem. Then you tell them have been paid. Then you can't kill a dog. Bad name. And that's why it's a constant. Check it. Read history. If somebody starts at the voice of the masses, if the powers that be want to take the person out, they build conspiracy around the person. What happens is that they will never take the person out until they have been able to orchestrate event that convince you the person that the person is bad. Now when they take the person out, even you too, then you remain in your miseries. It's called divide and rule. It works because the church likes it. Once a society enters that, it becomes a vicious cycle of death. They just Round and round and round. This is bad, then they do it again. This is bad, then they do it again. And this is bad. This is bad, then they do it again. It can apply to any country. And this is just cost. Effect. So if the result you have now, or the state of the world now, is the effect of Christianity practice 50 years, how solid is the cause? The same wisdom that cannot solve it. I see you.
Public School with Femi Lazarus.
All these things here, entertainment purposes, just simple conversations. Just for entertainment purposes, just simple conversations.